Sierra Leone in the time of COVID-19. The impact of the pandemic on frontliners, on business, and on our community. This is The Local Response, every week with Vicky Rameau. I'm here with Dr. Nellie Bell, who is a pediatrician at the Olajurin Hospital. She's also the Sierra Leone local partner for Aspen Medical International here in Freetown. Dr. Bell is a COVID-19 survivor. She's the second person to test positive for the coronavirus here in Sierra Leone. But what made her story especially important or poignant to the spread is that Dr. Bell hadn't traveled, and she couldn't think of anyone that she had been in contact with who had traveled. This is her story. Thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, thanks to God.
COVID-free?
Absolutely, totally free.
What did you feel like in your body? Like what kind of signs did you feel that made you say, you know what, I think I should get tested for COVID-19?
Okay, so I started having headaches on the Sunday. On Monday, it was okay in the morning, but then I started developing a sore throat and some sneezing and running nose in the evening. And that got worse during the night, that Monday night. And so Tuesday morning, it was not so much of a, really bad cough, but just a little bit of cough. But I did have the headache, I did have the sneezing and the sore throat. So on Tuesday, I spoke with the surveillance officer at the hospital at Olajurin, and we decided I should go and do the test since I actually have contact to so many people. So it would have, I tried to convince her, or we tried to discuss and actually tried to convince the lab team that yes, they should come and do the test for me.
Okay. First of all, before we talk about what the test is like, because I've seen some of it on the internet and it looks like, when you got your test and it came back positive, what were the first emotions that you had? How did you, what was like your initial kind of like, what just happened?
So it was shock. That was the first thing. I was shocked because really I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't even, I wasn't even really scared, but then I'd had that 1% inclination to think that yes, it might be positive, but I wasn't worried. So I was shocked.
Okay.
And then it was disbelief, and I was like, it was the 1st of April, so I thought the individual was, was doing a really mean April Fool.
Wow.
And the individual said, I don't joke about things like this. So it was then disbelief. Are you sure? Really? And then where could I have gotten it from? And then, oh my gosh, I met up with so many people the past week. How will they be doing? Have I infected them? Have they? So it was a series of emotions.
How did you feel about the possibility that you could have infected your family?
Devastated. I was totally devastated, thinking that I could have infected my husband and my kids. I knew my parents were fine because I hadn't seen them in a while, but I was devastated. Not just my family, but everybody else around me, my students, my co-lecturers, the co-heads of departments that I met a few days back, the case management pillar that we had a meeting 2 days prior to that. So it was a whole lot of people that I was worried about. Yeah,
I remember when I heard, because we happen to be from the same village. Well, I'm from the village, you moved to our village, okay? And, my father actually sent me the message and said, Dr. Bell in Pekin, don't test positive. I'm like, Tillery? Because I'm like, what? Like, no, Dr. Bell in Pekin, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay. And then I heard the news that, Mrs. Silla had tested. I was so, I'm like, what is going on? And then what I saw was people's reaction to the news that somebody had tested positive, and the language felt so like they were upset that someone had tested positive. And I'm sure that could not have been easy on you. You must have seen, you know, what was going on online. Why is it really important for there to not be any stigma or blaming in something like this?
Yes, so for different reasons. First of all, if you stigmatize somebody, you don't know if you're going to be a victim of this COVID-19 in the future, because nobody knows who has it. So nobody knows if you will get it or if you won't get it in the future. So you have to be careful with stigmatization. Secondly, it's not good to stigmatize, because then you're going to hinder other people from coming forward to do the test. There are a whole lot of people out there who are scared because of the stigmatization. So it's not just you, I mean, I had a lot of things, you know, posted against me, but it's not just that, it's your family. Right. So it's not just you at risk of stigmatization, but your whole family is at risk of stigmatization, and your friends and those around you, they're all at risk of stigmatization because of that. And so they will not come forward to be tested, and then they will continue to infect other people. So it is very, very important that we don't stigmatize. One, it could be you. Secondly, you don't want this individual to stay in the secret, in the dark, and then infect a whole lot of people, including yourself. So it's really important not to stigmatize.
When I heard that you were positive, actually, it was a real wake-up call for me personally, because I thought to myself, first of all, in Sierra Leone, I know that the medical doctors then sabi the disease. You guys, I'm sure you guys are reading up, you know everything, right? As you prepare for this response. And I'm like, this is probably one, okay, and also because I know your family. Like, you come from a family of doctors, I'm just like, if this woman were not doctor, well, I should say it was, because I know doctors wash their hands 1,000,000 times a day, right? If this woman were not doctor, where I should say is so careful, can get COVID, oh Lord, I might have it. Like, I literally was like, because I'm definitely not as cautious as a doctor would be, right? So it was a really good, for me, a good wake-up call. Like, if a doctor can get it, then I can get it. So I need to be extra careful. Now tell me about the test. What is the test like? I've seen it online. Can you describe what the actual test that they do? And you know, there are people in Sierra Leone who also feel like the tests are fake. So please tell us, first of all, what the test is like, and are these tests real? Do they read? How do they work?
Yes. So as I said, I'm a medical doctor. I'm not a lab scientist. What I can give for the layman, I can explain to you. So the lab technician comes to your house, facility, wherever you are, and normally they would change into their PPE inside of your facility, so that they come with normal cars. So they don't come with an ambulance. They come with, normally they come with normal cars, and then they walk into the sort of the front porch of your house, and they change there. They don't change in the cars and then walk in so that everybody can see them.
Why do they have to change?
Because of stigmatization.
Right.
Because we actually told them, because I'm part of the case management pillar of the EOC, even before I got infected. So we said to them, look, you cannot be doing that because of stigmatization. You have to change somewhere where the neighbors won't see you.
Right, because if people see that somebody is PPE is coming to your house, automatically they're like, hey, so they might come and harm somebody even before you get the test. You don't know, just because you see us like, oh my God, attack.
They would,
right?
they would immediately say this person has it.
So that's really great that they don't do that.
So they're coming to they have to wear their full PPEs because they're exposed. And then they come with the swab, which is like a cotton bud.
So like cotton bud we use for cleaning.
Yes, at the end of it, but it's a bit harder. It's not so soft. Not as soft as the cotton bud. It's a bit harder, and normally you have to lie down so that your nostrils are pointing upwards. Okay. And they normally try to not make it so painful by first stimulating the entrance of your nostrils, and then they go right in with the swab. They have to go deep down. Because they have to go where the virus will be sitting. If they no, they don't get to the throat. They're just in the nostril.
So just your like ENT passage.
Just the nostril. Just the nostril. Yeah. They don't even go further back.
Just like
just the nostril.
Inside.
Yes, inside. But they have to go way back because that's where the virus sits. So it is uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay. At the beginning, it was really painful, but now it seems I got a few tests done, so it seems as if the lab technicians have been trained
getting
more
better.
and getting
Yeah.
better, and all subsequent swabs were not painful, they were uncomfortable, but not so painful as the first one.
Okay, that's good to know.
So that's gotten better now. And then they make sure they do
Take
both
it out.
nostrils. Sometimes they go to the pharynx, so the back of your throat. So when I was in the treatment center, they had to do the back of my throat and both nostrils to make sure I was really negative. But now for the general public, they just do both nostrils with one swab.
Okay.
And
And what they're trying to collect is basically mucus, right?
mucus,
That
where
they
the
can- Sure.
viruses will be sort of habitat sitting inside.
Okay, and then they take that to the lab and test
They
it.
take it to the lab, and I know that the lab is a very authentic and accurate lab, which is why I eventually believed
Okay,
because
right.
for me it was like so.
Error in this lab.
I didn't
This
travel,
lab has
something,
error.
You know, something is wrong. I didn't travel. I don't know of anybody. You know. So, and I've been really cautious. I'm like the most cautious of doctors ever. You can ask my students. You can ask my junior doctors. I'm super cautious, and I shout at them if they're not. So, so I know that the lab is authentic. I know that the individuals working in the lab have actually also been called to go help outside of Sierra Leone, and they have actually refused to do that because of their love of Sierra Leone.
That's amazing.
We have people in the lab who have international, they're internationally known.
And accredited.
Accredited,
yeah.
yes. They go accredit other labs in West Africa and in England and in other in other areas. So those are the people we have in our labs in Sierra Leone. And they get called on a regular basis to go out of the country to go and help in Nigeria, in the UK, to go and help. But they're so patriotic, they want to stay in here in Sierra Leone and help. So I know and I trust the lab fully.
Okay. No, that's really good to state. I think, unfortunately, and maybe for good reason, we generally in Sierra Leone don't really trust the professionals that we have here. But sometimes we really have the best people in the world. We don't know because you're not in the industry, so you don't know that this person is actually top in their field. But so many people here who specialize in things are really the top in the world, and you're like, most places with them kind of go even still there in their country because, you know what I mean, talent gets taken everywhere. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, like, these people are the best in what they do. Now, the lab test goes, how long does it take for the test results? How long did it take for you to get your test results back?
So it took 24 hours.
Okay.
It took 24 hours to get my test results. However, the tests actually, you can run it in 12 hours. But the problem is transportation. So the swab gets taken, and then you have to transport it to the lab, and then they have to batch all of the swabs together and do all of them together.
Everybody else's tests that are waiting, basically. Okay.
Otherwise, you waste the test
Of
kits.
course.
So basically, they batch it. So they wait till all of the swabs have come in, and then they batch them all together and do them together. So normally 6 to 12 hours it should be done, but then the waiting time, transportation time, and then waiting for all the other swabs to come in. And now that it's gotten a bit more, now we have more swabs coming in, more tests coming in. It takes a bit longer,
of course,
because and so sometimes if the test comes in at 6 p.m., the swab comes in at 6 p.m. They've already batched the ones that have come
that
in from
day. So past tomorrow now.
So it's 48 hours.
Okay,
So one has to be very careful.
Okay. So what you're saying is the science, as in the whatever reads the specimen that they get, that specimen can take 12 hours to read, to 6 to 12 hours to produce a result that's negative or positive. But in terms of the administrative process, from the 10 hour the lab technician reader, he make the report, he send and go up, the other person compare, blah, 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 lady information pass, go all side get for pass. That can take up to 48 hours.
So basically, when you call for the 117, you get the surveillance is informed. The surveillance comes and does its surveillance wherever the person is, and then informs the lab. The lab then comes and takes the swab and goes to the lab, does whatever they have to do in the lab with the test, get the results, and sends it back to the surveillance.
Right.
And it's the surveillance that's supposed to convey the results
to
the individuals or institutions. So it's
Now tell me about being in a treatment facility for, how long were you there? Was it 2 weeks?
I was there for 19 days.
Girl, now let me tell you something about me. Okay? I like my things. I like my candles where I like them. I don't share toilets. Listen, so right now my biggest fear is not COVID-19. My biggest fear. I've told everybody, please, Papa God, if I get COVID-19, I am handcuffing myself to my bed because I cannot go to share something. So please tell me what it was like for you to leave your house and have to go spend 19 days in a government facility for COVID.
So, first of all, at that point, I was sick.
Okay. So you were not, of course you were not asymptomatic because you had symptoms. So you actually had COVID.
Which is why I got the test done, yes. So at that time, at that point, I was sick. First of all, I had cried the few hours before I was picked up. And first of all, maybe before we go to the treatment center, is the way that I was picked up, I wasn't so happy about it. Okay. We had there was a fleet of cars, about 5 cars, with soldiers and SSDs coming to my house in our village. So everybody, all the neighbors, first of all, they were outside.
Oh my God, that's giving me chills.
When I got the information, I was actually inside the room, staying away from everybody. And
you were self-isolating.
So yes, so I was waiting for my husband to come home because I had called him. I said, you need to come home right now. I need to go to 34. So because I know the procedure. Yeah. So I'd packed. I'd finished packing and I was just waiting for my husband to come home and I would have driven myself to 34 Military Hospital. And then all of a sudden from afar, the nanny says to me, there's some people outside waiting for you. I was like, send all guests away. I cannot see any guests right now. But obviously those were not guests. Yeah. They were there to arrest me. So, so my husband, luckily enough, came in at that point. So he ushered them in, but they'd been outside for a while. So the whole neighborhood was out. Of
course. And Hamilton, of course, we know is this place that's already had this like violence from last year's by-election. So it is a very tense community.
Exactly, exactly. So my husband ushered them in to the compound. So we closed the gates. So everybody started moving away. And when I came, I was like, what? 5 vehicles with soldiers and SSDs.
Unacceptable.
And I'm like, I'm already packed. I was going to jump in the vehicle.
First of all, you're in the case management pillar. So they know where you live, they know who you are.
Apparently they didn't know any of that. Apparently the people that came to pick me up, they didn't even know.
Who sent them, right? Because they may not know, but whoever sends you must know who you are, right? Like,
I don't know.
But even, let's say, forget that you're on the case management pillar. If you are a citizen of Sierra Leone who's been found positive of an disease that's you cannot give yourself. You did not go commit a crime. You are sick. This is a place that really thinks of people in an empathetic way, the last thing you would want to send is anybody in military personnel. Anybody. The first thing I would think is I want to send a therapist or a psychologist or a counselor to this person's house to counsel them, to counsel their children, to counsel their family, because you're about to ask their family member to leave. So you want them to feel rest assured that you're about to care for them, not like a battalion to come and wrestle just you.
So exactly. Yeah. So I told them off, obviously, because I mean you can't be doing that. But then after that, I actually realized why they were doing that. Not because of me, but other people have been resisting to come into the treatment centers. So, but then I thought to myself,
you were just case number 2, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So maybe it was just new for them and they were getting used to it. So, but people after that, people were resisting actually. So after that, I thought to myself, okay, maybe.
Well, if people start hearing you're sending out 5 cars, I'm not gonna be at my house when you come.
So it has changed now. So I had to go at them, and that has changed now. Fantastic. So that in fact, they don't have that many people to be sending out anyways. Yes. But that has changed. So it was case number 2. Okay. And because of that, everybody was nervous.
Hey, case number 2. You are famous. Okay, so you should get a t-shirt that says case number 2.
I know, and it's partly my fault. It's partly my fault because I put out that notice at the beginning, but I wanted everybody to know who KB. There were 400 and something contacts, you know, of mine. So I wanted them all to know.
So they could come forward to say, you know, to get tested so that
and self-isolate themselves and you know, and
no, it was the right thing to do.
You know, so anyway, so that has changed now. They're not doing that anymore. Thank goodness. But that was very traumatic for me, you know, and because I was crying, my kids were crying, and you know, it was just really, really a very, very traumatic situation for me.
No, I can.
So the ambulance, I walked into the ambulance and carried my stuff myself. I was sick, but not that, you know. And the nurses and the driver and the ambulance were so polite. They were just awesome. Yeah. Got to 34.
Yeah, EMS.
they got to 34, so we walked into this place. The nurses were really lovely, really nice. They didn't even know who I was, you know. So I introduced myself. I said, so this thing is real, guys, because I don't know where I got it. So there's some it's out there. Right. So I always like to educate people around me, especially healthcare workers. So I educated them a bit. I'm sure they were thinking, just go into your room and just
like you're just a patient here. This is not your hospital. Go and lay down.
So they took me into the room, you know, said this and this and this. There's this and this and this, and then they walked out and locked the door. I was like, don't lock me in. If there's a fire or something, what's going to happen? Like, sorry, Dr. Bell.
Were you the only one in there at the time?
At that time, yes. Wow. So case 1 was in a different room.
Okay.
And I was. So yes. So at the military hospital, it was okay. It was okay. It was far from being my comfort zone.
Okay.
It was far from being my comfort zone, but it was okay.
Okay. What do you think that it needs to be better than okay? Because one of the things that I really care about during this pandemic is to make sure that when people access care, the people who do come in as patients, that there is some kind of baseline that as a patient you can expect at a facility. What are some of the things you think from a patient side could be improved on so that more people, when you come there, you're like, okay, I can stay here.
Yeah. So there's no way it's gonna meet your comforts as it is at home. There's no way. And for me, 34 met the baseline. Okay. For me. Okay. I have high standards, so it did not meet my standards, even for a hospital setting. Yeah, had to do some cleaning myself, etc. But that's okay. I think it met the baseline because there's only so much one can do. You cannot always have the standard of Aspen, or you know.
Though we must always aspire.
We must. But this
an extreme level of excellence.
I didn't pay a cent when I was at 34.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Healthcare is expensive. Good healthcare is expensive. However you look at it, it's expensive. You have to pay for good healthcare, pay for cleaning, good cleaners, the cleaning materials and everything. And then you have to, I mean, these walls don't stay white just like that. They have to be painted on a regular basis and repainted on a regular. So it's all expensive. For the baseline, I think for the average Sierra Leonean, I think it was 34 military hospital was fine. I haven't been to inside of Jue and FBC and Lunge, but 34 military hospital had the baseline already. In terms of the staff, they were very professional, and the facility as well.
Okay. No, that's good. I'm glad. I think most people in general, I think because 34 was like the government's baby in terms of rolling out treatment facilities, that there was this maybe additional care. And we're learning that in other facilities, the same care has not been put in place, but hopefully as we move along, you know, things will, it's an emergency. So some things will be left out, but we just really, I think it's really important for the government to also note that it's an emergency and act in a way that is in accordance with an emergency. Don't delay things, you know what I mean? When you say, yes, I'm committing to finance something, finance it, make the money available. This is not the time to put bureaucracy before care.
So you know what the problem is the accountability part of it. So you don't want people to quickly produce funds, not account for it, not record it, not go through the process that it's supposed to go through, and then 2 years down the road they come and accuse you of embezzling or just using the funds in a way not accounting for all of every single cent. So that is the problem now you're seeing, unfortunately, which is why there's so much bureaucracy. But that has to be in place in order for them to be accountable.
That's true, but I believe that you can still expedite, right? There's certain things you can put ahead of others. Like, for example, medication for facilities, that should be expedited. It doesn't mean that you forgo the accountability measures or like oversight, but it means that you make sure everybody's in the same room who needs to sign. For example, right? Let's not pick paper to go to this person to sign it. No,
which is the system we have.
Exactly, which is what we had. You know, like there's a situation where you have a doctor who needs money for a generator has to leave Lunge, bring a paper letter to the Ministry of Health, arrive there, they say, no, take it to EOC, takes the paper, goes to EOC, leaves it there, goes back to Lunge. To get his funds, they tell him you have to come back in person to EOC to collect his funds. So I'm just like, no, yes, processes are amazing, but you cannot tell me in the age where cabinet is virtual that you can't have somebody take a photograph of a letter, sign it, PDF it, send it via email, send like there are just ways for us to be more efficient, to expedite. It is an emergency.
It's difficult. It's really difficult, and I feel for both sides. However, you know, we're not as advanced as that. So basically, maybe there's no printer in the office. So you send it as an email. You can't print it out.
You don't need to print it. You
can
keep the
save,
virtual.
yes, but then you don't even have a laptop.
Yes.
Maybe you don't even have a laptop to save it. You have your phone.
Please, those people at EOC,
I
they
don't
have
know.
laptops.
No, not
They've
EOC.
also,
The finance
they've already
people.
landed. They also
I don't
landed
know.
fiber optic cable
Yeah.
to the EOC. They took, when we are here begging for internet, they took the fiber optic cable. They landed it at EOC, meaning that all of their connectivity is intact. As far as connectivity issues
no,
at EOC, that's one they do not have.
I'm just speculating. I'm just saying it's difficult for both
This
sides.
is your government worker side coming out.
No, it's not my government worker side. It's my reformed side of being 8 years in Sierra Leone now. At the beginning, I was like that, but now I try to look at things. Now I can see things from both sides, because when I first came, I used to work for a German NGO, and then I moved to working for the government. Okay, because I wanted to have more access to the system and more influence in the system. So I decided to leave the NGO and start working for the government. And then working for the government, you do see these areas where you sometimes you cannot do anything about it. Otherwise, you do it, and then later on you pay for it, because then you don't have all of the documents, all of the papers, etc.
Right.
The fact that he had to leave himself to come to the EOC, that
it's very, because then I thought of people who are, if you're in Kenema, if you're in Bo, and all of these people in other regions, if they need to access, because we have mobile money also, right? So I'm thinking, aren't there banks in different places?
No, I think we need to, in order to be able to discuss this holistically, you need to get the other sides.
Oh no, I totally understand you need to get the other side. But what's really, really important is that government acts like it's an emergency, right? There should be some expediency with the work. Never ever forgo oversight and accountability. But we also had a couple weeks, a month maybe of preparation where it's like February, we had no cases, and we were at March, we didn't really have any cases. So we had at least 8 weeks to figure out things like what happens when a facility...
So I tell you what the problem was, why those facilities weren't finished yet. The money wasn't here yet. The actual World Bank fund came after the first case, after the second case.
But the Ministry of Finance did announce that they'd put out 1 billion leones really quickly in terms of facilities. And government government must have ways. I'm not talking about the financing, I'm talking about the process. Right?
No, the process was there. They started thinking, they started preparing.
So they started preparing the process, but the process does not exist in implementation. What I'm saying is, you may not have the money, right? You can say, we don't have the money for this, but you should have the process in place to say, should this happen, here is what we're going to do. And set baselines to say, if a facility needs this, what is the maximum amount of time it should take us to process? What are we trying to, is it going to take us 4 days? Is it going to take us 5 days? And as we deliver, how can we cut down on our response time? Because this is an emergency.
So the problem is those were all in place, but it's not implemented now.
No, it's not being implemented. It's not being implemented. Yes, so we urge the government to please step your game up. Step your implementation game up. We want to see rapid rollout.
The implementation and also the expanding of all of these services, because they were all in place even before I got infected.
I think they only kind of set it up at for like one facility and this idea that it wouldn't get into the community, that like the preparation was...
No, the idea was there. We had the plan already there for different, you have different phases, WHO phases, phase 1 to phase 4.
Right.
You have all those different phases. We're now between 2 and 3 and probably in 3 already. But, you know, we had the plan for phase 1.
We are
phase
like
2.
at stage 3 with stage 1 implementation. And so we need to kind of like escalate. And I do think that a part of this is that it is accountability, but a different kind of accountability where there's so many moving parts and there isn't oversight on the moving parts to ensure that people are actually delivering according to the plan. I think that, it's an emergency. It's overwhelming across the world,
very
globally.
Much overwhelming. It's been 9 years in Sierra Leone. I try to also think of the other side. For instance, we closed the border really quickly, didn't we? Okay, not the land border, the flight border. We started screening them. We started putting people under quarantine. If we hadn't done that,
I actually
this thing would have exploded.
No, I think that the government did an amazing job in terms of response. Like I thought, I mean, not to toot the president's horn, but toots. I actually thought that like President Biot's early action and the way he took it serious in the beginning was really commendable, which was a very extreme opposite from what we did as a government during Ebola. So like I was just like, yes, please lock all sides, lock it. So I was really proud of that.
Close down the schools.
Yes, absolutely.
Even before we had the first case.
I thought that was incredible.
I mean, that's amazing.
But you know, middle management, the other ones that have been told, go and implement the plan. Hey, you are letting us down. Please get it together. Now, thing I want to ask you is, for the person on the street who's thinking they are too smart for this disease, too wealthy, too beautiful, or no, because people tend to think there are certain things about them that make them we not so weak, not so we kind.
I know.
Please tell them why this really is every person's disease.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, somebody said, I'm hot for Jesus, so I wouldn't get the virus. I'm like, I'm hot for Jesus too, but I got the virus, so you can't be hotter than I am for Jesus, so please. But anybody can get it. Anybody can get it. And the thing is, with Ebola, somebody had to be sick for you to touch that person and get
they already get the symptom, don't sick.
Exactly. Before they would, and then you would touch that person and then you go get them. But with COVID, you can be talking to your neighbor who is not sick and he can give you the virus.
And you forget that you even had that conversation with him. You
don't forget that you even had that conversation. I mean, look at me. Look at me. People were speculating I got it from Aspen. Everybody's negative at Aspen. Now, a good number of nurses at Olajuwon are positive. So they're thinking, oh, maybe I got it from Olajuwon. I was going to these EOC meetings where you had a lot of expats.
But nobody there has...
There were a lot of expats who left.
Oh, yes, they don't carry the disease, go. So then say, no, one plane left here, so with European expatriates, we had 7 positive cases. So then the disease go with it. Now then you know what, it's the expats. We blame them. They're not here to defend themselves.
Some are still here. Some are working hard. Amazingly, some have stayed. And
I know. I have a friend who's here really hard.
I'm quite, I applaud those ones who are still here and they're still working. But so I mean, I'm really careful. I don't go to the market. I stopped going to the market. I drive in my car. I go to work. I don't give anybody a lift. That's been happening for the past month. I go to work. I'm like, don't come near me. Right. Don't come and give me corona. You know, that was me. You know. So I was so careful. And then I got it.
What are our blind spots? What are people's blind spots? Tell me potential blind spots about who we are and how we behave that people may not think are like risky behavior, but that really increase their chances of getting corona. So close friends and family. You might think, oh, that's my relative. Can't have corona. So let me go sit beside, let me keep comping small bits. Let's just go see him quick.
But the cousin doesn't also know that he or she has corona. And they will then go keep comping small bits. And before you know it, this person maybe shows signs and symptoms, or maybe doesn't even, but this next man will show signs. The other one, let me go pay a visit, for instance, somebody let me go pay somebody a visit. I haven't seen them in a while, and
Let's go see and quick.
Go see and quick.
Yeah.
For instance, the elderly, most of them now are under quarantine. They're self-isolating.
Right.
Most of them.
They have to.
So some young person, oh, let me go see this older person. They're my mentors. Let me go see how they're doing. Hope they're fine and everything. And take it to them.
Yeah.
He or she will be fine.
Yeah.
But they are older and they can get sick and they can die of it. Let me go to a prayer meeting. You know, I'm going to pray.
Prayer meeting
I'm
people.
going to pray.
Listen. No, you sabi then. Because then can think say if you go inside person or inside that, you know, like let we just hold fellowship. We not
Exactly.
now we 6 normal, we go hold fellowship.
Exactly. There was a choir in the States, I think it was, they met, I think it was 100 people, and none of them had symptoms, none of them had any problems, and 60% of them got the coronavirus, and none of them had symptoms, but they were singing and talking intermingling. So those are the scenarios. Apart from the day-to-day ones, you know, sitting in the keke, sitting in the taxi, you know, when you come down, because you've held the handle to the door of the taxi, you've held you sat inside the taxi, you have somebody else next to you in the taxi, you know, so, or the person who had just left the taxi or you know, had corona, the particles are still in the air in the taxi. You go in and you get the, you know, I don't want to scare anybody.
No,
you know,
please tell us. No, these people,
but those
people, you need to hear. They need to hear.
Those are instances where, you know, for instance, now, as I said, we're trying to tell everybody to wear the masks. Okay, for now we're sitting far away from each other. There's no table or surface here where the particles can land. So I can sit here without a mask. But if you can, when you're going out, wear a mask, because you don't know the next person next to you could.
So do you think that wearing a mask is the most important? Like if we're looking at all the things you can do, what are like the ones you say the 2 most important things, or 3? Let's make it 3 because these people, they need reinforcement.
I know. The most important thing is the hygiene.
Okay.
The hand hygiene.
Okay.
And if you ask me, it's maybe just a little bit more important than the mask.
Okay. Because if you hand dirty, you put your mask, you pull out, it done. Gotcha. Okay.
If you put on your mask the whole day and you remove the mask, touch the front of the mask, remove it, put it down, and then you touch your face and nose and mouth.
Okay. So would you recommend that before people put on their mask, they wash their hands, and before they take it off, they also wash their hands?
And after they take it off, before they touch their faces, they wash their hands, yes. Thank you.
So that was Dr. Nellie Bell, otherwise known to you as case number 2.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
She's a COVID-19 survivor, and as you've heard it, anybody can get corona. Anyone. You're not too smart, too faithful, too beautiful, too educated, or too down for Jesus. And if we're all going to have a really good chance of fighting this disease, you have to listen to the advice that people like her are giving. Wash your hands like you have lost your mind. Just wash your hands. Even if you feel like you haven't touched something, wash your hands and wear your mask. Wash your hands before you put on your mask. Wash your hands before you take off your mask. And then wash your hands after you have taken it off, just to be safe. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.